Giancarlo Gallifuoco,
Nice
the most butchered name in world football.
You said it well, man. You said it well.
Yeah. Oh, I know from my year 12 Italian, everyone called me Testa di Fuoco.
Oh, God.
So we've really come full circle today.
We really have. We really have, man. That's hilarious. No wonder you pronounced it so well, bro. Well done. Well done.
And you really have been on fire with your last couple of seasons at KLFA. But what I'm so fascinated about is your mantra. You have to tell me it's attitude, gratitude.
Grind, growth, gratitude.
Grind, growth, gratitude.
Yeah.
How did that develop?
I think, first of all, thank you for having me here, and that pronunciation of my name and that story was hilarious, man. It developed because I think I've been very fortunate in my footballing career that I feel like I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I was graced and blessed to say that I was at Spurs at a very young age. But also I played in the 5th division in England. I spent time when I didn't have a contract. So my metric is so far, so wide. And that now that when you say touch your version of the bottom, you start to like really appreciate everything. You start to realize that there's beauty in all parts, you know? I think we fall victim to this like wanting to be Ronaldo in football. And I'm really grateful that I've noticed that with gratitude, everything can be as beautiful as you want it to be, you know? And so that was where the gratitude side of things is so powerful for me. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like grinding, obviously it's also to make it sound GGG, but grinding is that I think as soon as you feel like you're not learning anymore, I think as soon as you feel as though you've achieved everything, or at least you feel like there's no need to work anymore, I feel like you've lost, especially in our profession, but in life in general. From work to relationships to friendships, you have to always feel this sense of self-awareness and self-growth and grinding, you know? And so that's where they both kind of marinate together. So I just feel like this mantra of kind of grind, growth, gratitude, I feel like if you always center yourself with those three things, you'll always be that your happiest, best version of yourself.
Yeah, and so right as well. And you never stop learning from friendship. I always think in every relationship, whether it's good, bad, you always learn something from someone. And for me, hearing your story, it feels like you've learned so much from a special character named the one and only Dylan Tombides.
Yes, I have. Man, I could. I don't know how long this video is gonna go for, but I could speak about him for a long, long time.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from him?
If I had to put it down to one thing, I was saying to you earlier off camera, but Dylan gave me this ability to humanize everything. I feel like in football, especially from a young age, you see these coaches as like a deity, you know? They become this father figure that controls everything in your life. And especially when you move away from home, people don't understand, like, you're not with your family, you're not with your friends. And if this person says something nice about you or says something bad about you, it dictates your whole day because you're sensitive, you're young. And I'm someone who's obviously competitive, but I'm also, I care by character, by nature. And I would fall victim a lot to if I had a bad day, or if even the coach had said a bad thing or gestured in a bad way, it would rock my week, it'd rock my month. And then meeting Dylan and becoming friends with Dylan, and someone who was vastly more talented than I was, he was able to give me this lesson of that is just a man. He makes mistakes too. He probably was scared to tell you that thing. He was probably awkward when he made that decision. He is also just a human being. And that humanizing really, really changed my career, because I didn't digest it well at the time. I didn't really understand to what extent I just felt like this this person I idolized was just trying to help me. And then as I got older, I really, really started to understand what he meant. He was trying to say to me, you're panicking about this person's opinion, when in football there's 7 billion opinions. And if one likes you and one doesn't like you, that shouldn't dictate your day. And that was a massive, massive lesson for me that Dylan taught me. You know, he really changed my outlook on football because of that.
And he used to light up a room, and he was just such an effervescent character. It's like meeting you today. There's a little bit of Dylan inside.
That means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Do you have a memory of when you first met him? What was he like?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked me this question, man, because it's a story I've told my family 1,000 times, but I was never really able to say it publicly because at the time it actually involved our national team coach. So when I was in the under-17s, he got called to the first camp. And the first camp was all AIS. So we all lived together, know each other. And there was only 2 or 3 players that came into the camp. And they were players that were playing in England. So we had gone to England and they had joined our camp in preparation for the Asian under-17s competition to qualify for the World Cup. And here comes in Dylan. We all know he plays for West Ham at the time. And so obviously everybody in the room was super envious, super jealous, you know? And he gets his food, like a confident character, sits on his table, and there's no one there. And I don't know, maybe just a bit starstruck, maybe I didn't take it in an envious way, maybe it's just not my character, but I'm so excited to sit down next to him, you know? So I get my food and I race and I sit down next to him. I introduce myself, hey man, my name's Giancarlo, it's way too difficult, call me Gigi. The other day he says, I'm Dylan, and we start to talk. And you know, I'm just asking him questions. He probably thought, who's this annoying little kid, you know? And I'm just looking up to him, oh my God, asking us questions, how's West Ham, how's this? And we have such a beautiful time, we talk. And then the meal's over. And after the meal's over, the coach says, okay, everyone, we've got training again this afternoon. Go to your rooms, lights off, rest. Everyone leave except Gigi, I want to speak to you. So obviously I know I'm in trouble, which was kind of a common for me when I was that age. So Dylan goes, okay, shakes my hand, he leaves. And Dylan being Dylan, he didn't mind bending the rules a little bit. So it's kind of like his big kind of hall, and there was windows high up around this cafeteria. And Dylan and another boy called Patrick, who was also playing in the UK at the time, Patrick can tell me, they go around and they go on each other's back and they're looking in the window because they know I'm about to get grilled by the coach, you know? Yeah. So coaches walk over and Dylan pokes his head out, he's pulling faces, you know, and trying to make me laugh. Yeah. And the coach proceeds to say that he's angry at me for how much I had welcomed in the boys from England. He was saying, where's your competitive nature? You're so soft, da, da, da. And obviously I'm 16. So like I was just saying prior, I do not have the thick skin yet. So I'm so down, and you know, it's gone from this funny thing about this guy I just met trying to make me laugh to now I'm sort of getting in trouble for talking to him. And Dylan was watching the whole thing, sees me get grilled, and I walk out and I'm shattered. I'm trying not to cry, you know, I think, oh no, I'm not going to play now. He does so angry at me, the coach. And Dylan comes. And obviously so awkward, you know, we've just met each other. And he puts his arm around me, he says, hey, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry. It's just one guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know this, he doesn't know that. And in this moment, this guy who plays for West Ham, a club I could only imagine on FIFA, waited to make me laugh, but then waited to cheer me up. And he said, what room do you stay in? And I was sharing with someone else. He said, no, you come stay in my room. And we got like a couple, I took my pillow and we pushed our beds together, and then I stayed in his room. And that built this foundation of our friendship where I thought everything could be okay if I had Dylan. Everything would be all right because he knows best. You know, he was my coach, and he had just destroyed me for being too soft. He saw it. And this guy was saying, nah, don't worry about him. You're a good player. I've seen you train. You're a good player, man. Don't worry. And that is my favorite story that I've told my parents so many times, because it was so important to me at the time. It was so important to me, you know. I felt like a bit of an outcast for what I had done in my coach's eyes. And he was this guy who had achieved more than anybody in the room, and he took me under his wing, you know, and that's my favorite story.
You really had an unshakable bond, and that led you to have many more incredible moments with Dylan. But when you were playing at Tottenham, you shared a bond in London. Were you close by together?
Yeah.
What antics did you get up to?
Yeah, so Can
you give us an insight?
Yeah, a lot.
Family friendly, please.
Yeah. I'll keep it PG. No, he was fortunate that I was fortunate. Sorry, that geographically he was quite close to me, and obviously he was. When I signed in London, I was so excited to tell him, and we hung out a lot. And he also showed me the ropes a lot about change room culture, which I hadn't really learned, because in Australia it was different, and then I had gone to Italy, and Italy, the change room culture is very different to the UK.
How so?
In Italian culture, where I think the change room is a lot, I want to say like softer, in the sense that, in like very stereotypical, but it's an Italian player will say like, oh, what material is this shirt? Oh, you look nice, man. What gel are you using? It's very vain, it's very soft, it's very open. They hug and they kiss when we say hello, you know. That's the way I was accustomed to. And then it came to England, it was like strong men, hard man, real man's man, you know, like came in, and it was about, in training you went to war, and I was not accustomed to that, you know. If I did something to you in training in Italy, we'd laugh and we'd joke. It was a bit similar to Australia like that. Whereas England, at the top flight, it was so competitive. And, you know, pranks, they go up a notch in England like they do compared to Italy and Australia. So that's where I was lucky. I had him. He kind of showed me the ropes, you know. Hey, if you wear bad clothes and you come in, they'll throw your clothes somewhere, they'll tape it up, they'll hide it, they'll tear it up. And I didn't know that, you know, so I was really grateful. But even as he got sicker sometimes, and as he was doing treatments, he would come over to mine, and I think he loved the fact that me and Olivia, she was living with me at the time, my wife, I think he loved the fact that we would just treat him like a normal person, you know. We didn't speak about his illness, we just talked about the same stupid stuff, that what song we didn't like, which person did this stupid joke, or watch football, talk about this, that, and the other. And I think that's where our bond grew a lot, because he knew that he had this kind of safe haven where he could switch off having to show everyone this strong character that was waving this flag about fighting against, you know, testicular cancer, and then also trying to play. He could come to my house and we could complain that the Miley Cyrus song was crap, you know. And I'm very grateful for that. We spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. I think that would have been the hardest thing. You're talking about all of these incredible times that you shared, but then on the flip side, you can never imagine your friend going through cancer and chemotherapy. How was it watching it, being almost by his side, really, being such a close friend? How much of a toll did it take?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost disrespectful to him for me to say that it was any toll on my shoulders, because I'm compared to what he was going through, you know. Yeah. But I just felt like anyone that you love, you want to help in any way. You want to help in any way. You wish you could take the pain away from them, you know. And I used to find that really hard. And, you know, sometimes he would come over with a beanie on, and, you know, we'd be in my house and it'd be 50 degrees because I've turned the heating up so high, and he wouldn't take his hat off, and I used to feel so bad for him, you know, that was a norm so many times. But if I have to be really honest, man, and maybe naive, maybe because of how much of a Superman I thought he was, I just never thought anything was that bad because I just could never see him not winning, you know? So I, even sometimes, like I said to you, I would tell Olivia, like, hey, Dylan's coming over, but like, you know, don't ask this, or don't talk about that. And fortunately, after one or two times, Olivia knew his character well and we were so comfortable. But I just had this thing all the time where I was like, it's only a matter of time till he beat it. It's only a matter of time, because every obstacle I'd seen him face, he didn't just jump the hurdle, he demolished the hurdle. So I was actually it was kind of a blessing and a curse, but it allowed me to have such a normal friendship with him and not think about that, because I am a sympathetic, empathetic person, and it was hard for me. And now I think, I would say to myself, like, this is just another thing that for the rest of my life he's going to say I beat, you know? And so that allowed me to not have this ambiance that I felt sorry for him when he was in my house, because I'm kind of grateful he had this Superman complex, and I think, perfect, no, I don't need to worry about you, you're fine, you know?
He always gave off that demeanor.
Yeah, he always gave off that demeanor. He always did, man. And even like fragile, white, no hair, always gave off that demeanor. And he came to my house about 11 days before he passed, man. And I remember him speaking to Olivia, and he started telling Olivia some stuff about his treatments, and I thought, oof, he must really like her, because he never talks about his treatments, he never talks about stuff like that. And I think a bit of him sort of sensed it, kind of felt it. But even in that, man, even feeling it, even facing it so close, the guy was confident to the end, bro. Confident, incredible character, man. He was really, really the closest I've ever seen a real life like superhero, man.
Yeah. I can't even begin to imagine how he was playing through testicular cancer, through his chemotherapy. Crazy. How do you think he did it?
I honestly, I don't know, man. Like, I think about the stupid stuff I complain about, you know, like I get a sore foot or something and I'm like, oh, the world must stop, you know? Yeah. But he did it, and not only did he do it, man, he did it well. Wow. He did it well, man. I'm 29 years old now, and I don't have an inkling. I don't have an inch of the ability that he had, man. He was such a good footballer, and under so much pressure, you know. And that's another thing that people don't realize. Like, as he was fighting, and the first time it kind of looked like he was going into like a remission, and he had kind of beaten it. Everyone had their eyes on him, and that could have been taken really wrong with a weaker character, you know. And instead, he reveled in it. And he was still loud in the change room, and he was still, you know, like the same Dylan, always up to, you know, I don't want to say any profanities, but, you know, always up to no good. And
keeping you on your toes.
Yeah. And that's just another thing for his legacy, you know. I find it incredible that I can talk about him and say that literally till the last days, he always acted like he had it under control. And I think that's incredible, man. Strength beyond his years.
When Zoa grows up and she asks you about Dylan, or she asks you about your football career, and she asks you about your memories, and you speak about Dylan, what message would you pass on from Dylan's life onto her?
I'll talk about him a lot, because I have a necklace, and it has a pendant that I got from Tracy that I wear all the time, and it's become almost superstitious because I have to wear it before every single game, and I'm sure she's already pulling on it so many times, so I'm sure she's going to ask about it soon. And I have a pendant, and it's Dylan's fingerprint, and when that question inevitably comes up, because I like to speak about Dylan a lot, because I'm a believer that if you don't speak about the dead, they die twice. So I love to talk about him, and I want her to have this example of this guy who, in the face of everything, always kept his cool, he always kept his confidence, and I admired that a lot, you know. And he always saw, you know, people say you see the good in everything, but he saw the brag in everything, you know. It wasn't just the good. He saw the brag in it. He saw the confidence in it, and I love that, you know. Like I was telling you off air, but you know, I think about examples to tell Zoa, and the example where he was coming to see my first car, you know. And for everyone who doesn't know, obviously Dylan was playing at West Ham and had an incredibly cool sports car, and I bought my first car secondhand, £2,000, barely worked, and it was a Mercedes A-Class from 1991, so it was it was 19 years old or something. It was
Been around the block.
Yeah, it was really bad, man. It was such a stupid purchase. And he was coming over for the first time, and I was so embarrassed. Like, I was thinking, oh, what have I done? Why did I buy this car? Like, he's my superstar friend coming over with his sports car. And the first thing he said when he walked in the door, and I'm like so ready for him to say something, he said, oh man, congratulations, like first car Mercedes, you know? And I remember thinking like, oh, you know? And then I laughed, and I was like, no, don't take the piss. And he was like, nah, man, like, you know, a lot of first cars people buy like Toyota, they buy this, and hey, you know, you got a Merc, like it's incredible. And here I am, like now walking my chest up, you know, because Dylan said my car's cool. And obviously it wasn't. But that's the kind of things that I want to try to implement with my daughter, and that's the kind of stories that I'll tell of Dylan, for her it'll be Z or Dylan, of her Uncle Dylan, because I want her to have this. He can still guide from up there, so I want her to know that, like, you know, things are what you make it, and I think Dylan really showed me that time and time again.
Wow. Yes. Very special, and you've been so fortunate across your life to have many incredible people. I'm thinking about your love for the game, and your heart bleeds football and pasta. Nonna would be proud of that back in Sydney. But please tell me about your dad. I know he played Serie C, which is a very good level, and you idolised him. What was the stories he imparted to you about the game and the love, and what do you think about from your childhood that's been special? He's obviously my biggest role model. From the jump, as an Italian household, football is everywhere, you know. The earliest presents I can remember him bringing home were jerseys, you know, and football, and always playing. And I was really lucky that my dad was very involved with me. He was like a really supportive footballing dad. Obviously, that also comes with when you don't play so good, they're not so happy, you know. But it was incredible, you know. My dad was unfortunate that in the time when he was kind of cracking into football, his father passed away. So he was very young, and in our culture, the oldest man becomes the kind of capo of the family. So you've got to the head.
You know, the head of the family. The head of the family. I probably should say it in English. He had to become the breadwinner, you know, and that kind of put his dreams to the side. So I think he felt like with me that he was going to give me every single possibility to follow through on that. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that he kind of he gave me the utmost belief, and just from I say all the time to people that my childhood would always rotate around this. There would be bedtimes, or like not too much video games, not too much PlayStation, not too much this. But if it was football, I could break any rule. So if it was raining outside and they would say, you know, oh, you can't play outside, or don't go. If it was for football, my dad would let me go, you know? Or if it was for this, and my dad, or if I forgot homework, but it's because I was training, it was okay, you know? So he gave me this kind of like golden ace up my sleeve, you know? And I'm very, very grateful for him. He gave me a beautiful childhood.
Yeah. I love those loopholes for culture.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Where did he play though?
So he was...
Talk me through his career.
Yeah, sorry. So he's... we're from Napoli.
Yes.
And there's like a little town just on the south, and it's called Castellamare di Stabia. So it actually means like
The castle.
on the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we're from. That's where our family is. And that's where him and my uncle both played. And my uncle was also a very, very, very talented footballer. But that's where my dad was, and kind of like a bit of a right moment, right time kind of situation. He was with the reserves. First team wasn't doing so well. And the coach came down, and he had a good session. Coach said, come up to the first team, and he scored on debut, and then he played for the rest of the season. And that kind of shot him to the first team, and that my dad's career was starting, you know, it was blossoming. And unfortunately, the next season was when it kind of all took a turn. So it was short, but I think for him, he feels like, he has the satisfaction that he did it. He played for his town.
Yeah.
He played in front of his family. You know, he ticked that box. So one of these days, I would love for you to meet him, and he will tell you through the stories, and it's awesome. Like you say about me, which I'm grateful, but I don't hold a candle to how my dad can show you passion through football.
Yeah, it's a emozione per sempre.
Yeah,
it's an
exactly.
emotion forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'd love to read about his stories, but his story was on the front page of La Gazzetta dello Sport, though, was it?
It was not. It was not, and he did not have a bad front fringe either. Yeah, that's the article that changed my life, man. Yeah.
Is that framed up at your house?
Well, if I could just cover the photo, I'll frame it up.
Photoshop's
yeah,
a
exactly.
beautiful tool.
Yeah, it really is, man. I need to use that. Yeah, no. I'll explain it for those who don't know. But basically, I was in Torino, and Torino at the time were in Serie B. So they were a small club, and I was playing with the under 18s. I was 17 at the time, and it was nice. It was you're basically kind of on like a scholarship. Clubs in Italy, they do this like so stereotypical thing where they have like a nonna or a zia who cooks, and the team just goes to like house. They're paid by the club, and you eat there. So your bills are nothing, you know. You just pay your lodge, and then you eat there and you train, and that's life. That's football, you know. And it's beautiful, you know. You feel you don't need anything else when you're that age, you know. You feel like you're living the high life.
My Italian friends would say you're like a mamoni.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated, you just grow up old and your mum just cooks and cleans.
Yeah,
it's
you
living
know,
the dream.
Yeah, you know, like everything's kind of just done by an auntie or a mum or you know, and then you kind of just that was it, you know, and
eat, sleep, football.
Exactly, and life was really awesome, man, and I was so satisfied there. I was like really, really happy. I was thinking, man, this is my dream. And then by a divine miracle, there's a game called an amichevole. Basically means like an open-seated friendly.
It's a friendly.
And the first team's going to play each other before the Christmas break, and they need players. At the time, I was playing midfield, so they call some players from the reserves, and we go up there. And to kind of like even the team, he put me in predominantly the starting 11. So I had a very strong team around me. So I don't want to take any credit. Like there was a very strong team around me. And then kind of the reserves mixed with some of the younger players. And luck, grace of God, a lot of training. I don't know, ball bounced the right way. But I have a really good game. Things are all falling for me. I'm pumped up on confidence. And then at one moment, I get this pass, I turn, I ping this really nice through ball, guy goes on, scores, and that's the winning goal. And so, next day, on the cover of the La Gazzetta dello Sport, the national paper in Italy, which is like a religious paper that everybody reads. It says Torino find a reinforcement from Australia, a secret reinforcement from Australia.
Wow.
And then that's the first time I really felt like footballer, like a famous person, you know. All of a sudden in Italy, when I was just like a Torino kind of, no one knew who I was. I walk into the cafe, I get my coffee and I leave. Now you're, you know, everybody's, oh, please, you know, oh, the coffee's for free, don't worry, oh, please, you know. Oh. So it was nice. It was my first little touch of fame. And I was thinking, wow, man, like, how can life get any better? And then I have a message on Facebook from Massimo Luongo, another childhood friend of mine. And he says, my technical director wants your WhatsApp number. And I was like, why? He said, oh, he wants your WhatsApp number. And I get a call from Tim Sherwood. And then my whole life flips. And then in 2 weeks, I'm at Tottenham Hotspur. And I wish I could find it, man. But there was a photo of me, no beard, 60 kilos. And I'm in the training ground reception. And I just look starstruck because for the first 6 months I was there, I couldn't believe what had just happened, you know? It was such an amazing turn of events. And just to close the story, but to put a little moral in the story, it's something I always love to tell, especially to young players, because it can be going completely wrong till it goes right. Yeah. You know, that is the nature of our profession. And that was just a moment where I was at the right place at the right time. And, you know, like, still to this day, it's the first thing everybody asks. It's like, wow, you're at Tottenham Hotspur. And I'm so grateful, you know, that I have that on my CV. I have those stories. I have some friends there that I still message today that, like, I can't believe I'm friends with, you know? So I'm a real amazing moment.
That's so brilliant. And I even read before you were at Lazio as well. So Torino wasn't the first stop on your Italian football pilgrimage.
No. Lazio was first. So I basically went from Australia to Lazio about 6 months, finished the off season, and then went back Torino, finished the year, and then to England. So at Lazio, I was at the time that Mark Bresciano was there. And you know, you get older and you start to think about the advice that they were giving you, and you digest it a lot better once you can see it from their age and their eyes, you know. And at the time, I remember they were heading towards the end of the season, and he was saying to me, so what's happening with your contract? And I was saying, oh, you know, the guy told me basically go home, come back on this day. And he was saying, like, have you signed anything? And I was saying, no, but he just told me this, he told me that, you know. I'm just thinking, like, Mark Bresciano, oh my God, man. And he's going, oh, you need to say this, you need to say that. And, like, obviously not to lengthen out the advice, but he was telling me things about the game, and I just couldn't digest it at the time. I was 16. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was saying, like, that's okay, man. I shook his hand, you know, like, it's fine, it's finished. And so then I basically went home, and that ticket to send me back over never came. And so completely fine, just it was a lesson, you know. It was a lesson that he was trying to warn me, you know. In football, unfortunately and fortunately, 6 billion people in the world want to do it. So everybody is willing to take your spot if you don't look. So he was trying to warn me of that. But yeah, that 6 months there was a really amazing experience.
Yeah. And you've really rode the ebbs and flows of football. And as we're on the Italian pathway, I just think of this canzone, this song, and it's called La Favola è un gioco.
Yeah.
The fairy tale is a game. Has football been everything that you imagined from when you were a young boy? Has it been all that it's cracked up to be?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. That's a really good question. I don't know what's the best way to answer it, because my dad, fortunately, because he had a taste of it, was always warning me about the hardship in football, the sacrifices that I had to make, And by sacrifices, people have this false view of football. They think about the 1%. They think, it's not bad being Raheem Sterling and making 200 grand a week. And it isn't bad to be Raheem Sterling and make 200 grand a week. But that is a very, very small percentage. You forget that there's 20 odd teams, 5-6 divisions, every country in the world. And you're comparing it to the top of the Prem. The rest of the footballers are not making that much money. They're sacrificing in the sense of they're not home, they miss birthdays, you miss events, you miss your friends, you lose relationships, and I didn't quite understand that, and my dad was trying to warn me about that. And so when I went through football, and to the age of about 24, 25, I hit this wall. And if you had asked me that question then, I would have said a very, very jaded answer, if I'm being honest, because I was holding myself and I was holding football to a standard that was 1 in a billion. And I was saying, how can it be that I do exactly what he does and I work as hard, I think, as hard as he does, and his trajectory went that way and my trajectory went that way? That's unfair. And then I realized how stupid of a sentence that is, because how can I compare the plethora of doors that we may or may not open every single second, every single day, compare it to each other when our opportunities are different, luck, talent? So once I had kind of learned that lesson and hit my version of bottom, I realized that I had to change my view of football. And once I did that, fortunately, also everything rolled in a much better way. And then you kind of, in a beautiful way, you start loving football and it starts loving you back, And so now you ask me that question and I say, yeah, it was everything. And the lessons that I learned will stay with me for the rest of my life, from stupid things like my character. I feel like I'm quite social because I've always been in a change room. I've learned a lot about how hard to push when I argue with someone, how much not to, when I need us both to perform, what kind of characters need a slap on the head and which ones need their ego stroked, which ones need. So I'm really grateful for football in that respect. And then in other silly things, like footballers learn very early that they have to budget, because you're told all the time that there's only a finite amount of years. It's only a finite amount of years. You need to save, you need to invest, you need to save, you need to invest. So football has given me so many lessons now, and now I look back at it and I say everything was worth it. Every single thing was worth it. From being in Italy and not getting my salary, to the heights of Tottenham Hotspur and partying with people that could buy cars every week if they wanted to, and then to the other side, being in 5th division and having to go to the grocery store with a set amount of money to spend. And all of these will last me for the rest of my life. And now I can definitely say it was worth everything.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that you recognise the journeys.
Thank you.
That's been worthwhile and it's built you into the person that you are today. It's quite wholesome. And I think well and truly your wife now, Olivia's played a huge role.
Yeah.
How long have you been together? And I'm amazed she was even there when Dylan was alive. So that's 9 or 10 years almost.
Yeah. So I once again, I'm grateful for the question, because it's someone who is in the background a lot and doesn't get enough praise. But I say all the time that I definitely am lucky, very lucky in football, because I had that person. Not everybody has that. And we met when I was 15. So I moved from Sydney to Canberra, and she was in my high school. And
at the AIS?
At the AIS, yeah. So I left Sydney and I met Olivia, and Olivia is born with natural, just 100% confidence. 100% confidence in every single thing that she does, And that's why her and Dylan got along really well. Really, really well. because you can't offend them. No joke will ever offend them. They'll just roll with it, you know.
Yeah.
And she, in a lot of these periods when at the beginning of my career where I was very rattled or I was low on confidence, or I can't say I was ever low on motivation or on ambition, but I'm a soft character by nature, and I would find it very hard to digest when things would go wrong. And I was really, really grateful that her, alongside Dylan, probably the two biggest influences that would always humanize people, the people that above me, and always give me confidence. And I'm 29 now, man. Freaking heck, we've been dating a long
Half a lifetime.
Yeah, we've been dating a long time, and I've grown up into a man alongside her, you know. And I don't have one achievement or accolade that I could have done without her in my support system. She's been around. We've lived together since I was 19. She moved over as soon as we could. She sold her business to come with me. So she had a dance school that was doing really, really, really well.
She just danced her way into your heart.
Yeah. That's the headline. She said, "No, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. I understand that your profession requires this amount of time right now, and I can do things later." And she studied. She got a degree whilst we moved abroad, and the course was online from Australia. So when we were in England, and she would have to do a test at 3:00 in the morning. Yeah, that was obviously not so easy. And without complaint, Olivia is remarkable like that. But she, if I could just say, like, just to close up the beautiful woman that she is, obviously aesthetically and internally. But she, a lot of times when football was not working, and for example, you go to a trial, and I'm sure you know, but for anybody who doesn't know, as a footballer, that's like an audition, and it's a horrible experience because they're watching every single thing you do, from what you think you do on the field to your character, how you fit in the change room, what's your habits, do you look professional, do you look worthy for my investment? So you come in and you're on a 3-4 day trial or a week trial, and if it starts to stretch out, it goes in 2 weeks, and then it goes, and you are on show, and it feels like 500 people have got a camera on you and they're watching everything. And it's a really stressful time. And every time you train, you think, did I train good enough? Did he like it? Did he see that good pass I did? Am I going to get the contract? Am I not going to get the contract? And when that no comes and you feel like you've done everything, it is a biggest punch to your confidence, because that person just said indirectly, you are not good enough. And that's so hard. This is something you've done since you were 5. You know, this is something you care about more than life itself. It's your number one priority. And I would come home and she'd say, well, he's wrong. We'll go to the next one. We'll show them. And if I didn't have someone like that, there's no way that I could be 29 now, talk about the achievements I have and the stories that I have, and still be a professional footballer. So I owe everything in my adult career to her.
Oh, it's so beautiful. You got to ride those ups and, well, tough. It's just made you the people you are through those challenging experiences. I think you really get to see who someone is through those moments.
For sure,
so
exactly.
It's not a reality TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be, though, your life.
Could. Yeah, it could. It would entertain.
The way you've led your last 15 years. Yeah. And I was lucky to meet her at Mid Valley, the shopping centre, the other day. That was a spontaneous stroke of luck.
It scared me when you called my name. I thought, oh, God, my mum and dad.
Were you back in trouble? Yeah. Back in the naughty corner, no. But yeah, I felt really lucky to meet you. I'm sure you've met so many incredible people, but who was the person you met that you would have never imagined that you would have crossed paths with?
Well, first of all, I would say I'm very grateful and lucky to have met you too. And the 2-hour drive we just did of the whole of KL was nice, man. I have that memory forever. But if I have to say the most the most impactful person that I met because of how it happened and everything was my first day at Spurs. I do my medical, and then the next day I come in, and obviously, you know, I've just signed, so they don't rush you into training. They basically say, okay, well, today you're going to do a bit of light running, and then you're going to do some gym with the team. I say, okay. And they go, oh, the way we do it here, because the gym was quite small, we were changing over to the new training ground. Say, oh, so the way, because the gym's quite small, you have slots, and we have a gym buddy. So here's your program. Tom Carroll, you're with Harry Kane. Michael Dawson, you're with Adebayor, you're with Giancarlo. And I was like, and that to me, that moment, I got to spend 1 hour working out with a guy I could never, and he was my gym buddy for the rest of the season. So he became my friend, he took me out, and I can tell you 1,000 stories about him as well. But that has to be the biggest, probably, like, that's someone had such an impact on me, because 7 days before I was playing with like 16-year-old Luigi in Torino, and now I'm here and I'm doing a workout with Adebayor, and he's talking to me about the house he bought or the car or the game, or showing me a highlight of this, and we're talking like, and that was just like, that story to me, I tell it all the time, because it was like, what kid gets to have that moment? What kid gets to have that moment where this guy you could only dream of playing with on FIFA is now working out with you, talking to you and saying like, hey, so what are you doing after this, coffee? Or, you know, like, that was the most impressive, like, impactful moment.
Yeah. Do you see yourself in your dressing room now as reincarnate of Michael Dawson, with just his ways and his modus operandi, the way he carries himself and the things he says in the he said to you in the dressing room? Yeah. Have you pinched a few ideas that you now implement?
Yeah, him specifically, I try to mimic a lot, to be honest. He was a huge influence for me, because he, even at the height of his career at Spurs, he was humble as pie, and always tried to balance the books. And I mean that by saying, when you play as a leader, but specifically as a centre back, a large part of your role is kind of yelling, you know, for lack of a better term. You're obviously trying to keep everybody in shape, but you're also trying to keep people accountable. You're trying to keep them alert. You're trying to motivate, you're trying to stimulate. And Michael Dawson had this incredible ability to push you in training and then come up to you if you needed it in the change room. And I needed it when I was 17, 18. And I remember one huge moment where he saw me, we were walking in Essex. My mum and dad had just come over, which was a huge deal for me, you know. Like, it was the first time in my life I could afford buying them a ticket. My mum and dad don't have a lot of money, so it was like, you know, I'm repaying you guys for 1/10 of 1,000th of what they've done. But we're walking in Essex, and I see Michael Dawson 67 meters, 70 meters away, and like he should, and like any normal footballer, he'd kind of like, and then walk the other way. If it was Gareth Bale, if it was anybody else, that was how that transaction was going to go. I was with my mom and dad, I'm a young kid, and he sees me, and I kind of like smile, shy, and then I turn into, I think, like a chemist. I'm buying my dad some sort of medicine or something, and I turn into the chemist, and I look back, and he's jogged up to the chemist to introduce himself to my parents. It's Michael Dawson, man. The guy played for England. And he said to his wife clearly, like, just give me 1 second. And he's come over and he said, hey, you must be Giancarlo's parents, Gigi's parents. Oh, you know, yeah, did say Giancarlo.
That's only me at the shops.
Yeah, it's way too English. You must be Gigi's parents. Oh, I'm Michael Dawson. My dad's like, I know who you are. And he's like, oh, you know, your son's doing really well, which I probably wasn't. But that moment made my dad and mum's year, you know? And that was so influential for me. And, you know, the metric we talk about. But obviously, to a lot of people here, fortunately, I've been blessed with them holding a highlight to me, which I'm very grateful for. So I try very, very hard to, when I see parents of young players who are, this is their whole world, you know, they're born in Kuala Lumpur, grown up in Kuala Lumpur, now they're playing for Kuala Lumpur, and this must be the most important thing. Their dads must be so proud, you know, and if I can have that moment like he did for me and say, hey, your son's doing really well, you know, he played excellent today or whatever, and I can have them have that story, that's the kind of influence that he had on me. He had a real humility in how he led.
It makes you feel taller than the Twin Towers.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. And your dad seems a reoccurring theme of the impact he's had on you. And it was quite hard hearing about your Spurs journey and just the emotion after your first week that you'd come from Serie B with the juniors and you're training with the first team. You've met Harry Redknapp. What was the biggest challenge that you faced during that week that made you so emotional? Emotional.
Yeah. Okay. You've done your homework, man. You've done your homework. Yes, so heaps embarrassing. Thanks for bringing up the story. Joking. Yeah, so my first week there, I played my first in-house game. And me, Massimo Luongo, and Tom Carroll, I think, yeah, versus Modric. Okay, so Giovanni Dos Santos and Crenshaw. Like the uneven scale there of talent is so unfair. Thank God I had Massimo and Tom, but we get destroyed. I can't tell you how much. I didn't even see the ball. I just know I didn't touch it. I didn't see it. I didn't smell it. I didn't look at it. I was on a fitness drill. I just ran 10 kilometers just on a pitch, you know? And I was just destroyed. And I called my dad and I was bawling my eyes out saying, Dad, what have I done? In Torino, I was the man. In Torino, everybody was calling me the iron kangaroo. I was strong. I was like, here, I'm not going to do anything. And he was, fortunately enough, he knew I was being an idiot and talked me off the ledge and said, shut up and work hard and you'll get your time. And I'm really grateful for that. But that was definitely an embarrassing, traumatizing moment for me, man. They were just, it was like stepping into another world, bro.
Yeah. What would you say to yourself if you could stop time, go back to your 18-year-old self? What would you tell him?
Oh, man.
For all your wealth of experience now.
Yeah.
Because who knows, you may have that moment with, if you have a son or Zoa goes down the professional football path and they're at Tottenham's training ground in the first team.
Yeah. There's this beautiful biblical quote that says, where God guides, he provides. And I really like it because I think it's it gives you this kind of ideology that eventually the thing will happen that you need. The moment will come. And I think that's kind of the most important lesson that I learned. I can stare at this wooden table, and if I look at just this scratch section, it's a terrible table. But if I can zoom out and see all its benefits and all its purposes, my ideology and my impression of this table is completely different. And that was a massive thing for me that I know now and I use in every part of my life. But at the time then, I used to think one bad training meant, why are you laughing? I used to think one bad training meant that I was a bad player. One bad game meant that I didn't deserve to be there. And so that would be my advice to my 18-year-old self, to calm down, not take every single moment so seriously, and to know that if you are resilient, if you keep working, if you stay confident, eventually your moment or your time or you'll be at the right place at the right time, and then you take your opportunity.
and take your opportunity that you have with your career. I was laughing because I thought you were going to use my budget hotel as an example.
No, I would never do that to you.
Oh,
This is 5-star, man.
5-star. Oh, this is the nice part. Oh, what a catch!
Okay,
That's not.
oh my God,
That's not for our audio
my God.
listeners.
Oh my
Gigi's
goodness.
almost
I really
had an
hope-
absolute nightmare there. He's
How
done
I-
a Steven Gerrard
Did you see
there.
how I caught that as well? Wow, that
Yeah.
was so lucky, man.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, lucky you've got Olivia as your catch.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. Nice, man.
Yeah, but what I loved hearing with your Tottenham experience with Harry Redknapp and Andre Villas-Boas, they couldn't be more polar opposite characters. Andre Villas-Boas, he's going in the Dakar Rally.
Yeah.
Harry Redknapp won I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
They're from alternate universes. What were they like as people?
Harry Redknapp was super cold. Super duper cold.
Mhm.
He was like an old school English manager. He stayed away. He only talked on game day. And that was another thing for me that I found quite difficult that first 6 months. Like my father was trying to warn me, and I guess Olivia became so integral for me in that same place. But I do need that kind of person to guide me. I always say when I go to new teams or I speak to new coaches, I say I'm a soldier. You just tell me where to go and what to do. That's what works best for me. Just keep reminding me where you want me and how you want me to play or whatever. That's where I work at my best. If I stew too long with my own thoughts, then I'm such a perfectionist, I'll start to criticize myself. So when I first went to Spurs and Harry Redknapp was so detached, you'd eat breakfast and he'd walk in, do I say good morning? Do I not say good morning? Then he'd walk straight past you and you think, oh no, does he not like me? Was it because I wasn't, So that was a real cold environment. And then he got sacked or left and Villas-Boas came and he was the polar opposite. He was incredibly warm. He spoke Italian. He took me under his wing. It was the first time he took me to preseason with the first team, so he was really he was taking his time to try to grow your game. And so that second year at Spurs was completely different for me. All of a sudden he was saying, hey, I think your attributes are better suited for defense. In training he would say, hey, don't get so nervous about this, try to do that. And so that was I was starting to grow into the player that I could be. And so I was really lucky that he was a large chunk in the middle. But unfortunately, and I try not to say this too much because I feel like a lot of footballers always talk about if it wasn't for this moment, I could have been in Real Madrid. I was never going to play for Real Madrid. But the moment that I got the closest to the first team, I was playing in the friendlies and we played West Ham in their stadium, and I was starting to get closer. They put me on a program to basically bulk me up because I was way too skinny to play defense in England. That was all under Villas-Boas, and then unfortunately he got sacked. And that is just the nature of the game. But I see him in such a high light because I grew so much and he gave me so much guidance that was the closest I've ever been to the biggest club I've ever played for. So, two different worlds entirely. But if I could choose one, I'd definitely choose Villas-Boas. But both successes in their own right.
Right. Yeah. Almost as much as success as you're having right now with the people that you've got around you in KL.
Thank you.
I would love to hear about life in KL for anyone who hasn't been, and you're the biggest foodie here. Where are the best spots to eat?
Oh my goodness gracious!
Because Malaysia is just synonymous for their food culture.
It's
intense.
It is absolutely incredible. I think in Western culture and even in Italian culture, we cheat a bit with salt. A lot of our meals, the main punch is salt. Whereas coming here, you can have a meal that rotates purely around turmeric, then another one rotates purely around paprika, then another one rotates purely around cayenne peppers. And for me, it was just so beautiful. Whereas obviously I love Italian food, it's in my veins. And Australia has such an incredible cafe culture, incredible. And I was fortunate enough to live in Melbourne as well, which is like the Mecca. But here, I never expected how wide the variety of food. You know, like I have come to Kuala Lumpur quite a few times. When I was younger, so I was aware of how beautiful of a metropolis it was, and I was aware that the food was good local food, but I wasn't aware that it had every side of the food spectrum. You know, I can find a Melbourne style cafe that will make me an almond milk latte and a deconstructed, like super fancy breakfast that I like when I'm in that mood. And then I'll drive and go to a hawker on a side road like I did this morning and buy 50 nasi lemak for my team and eat it. And it's homemade sambal on coconut rice that this person has been doing this recipe from her mum's mum. And it's delicious, you know?
Yeah.
There's a place in the mall which I feel like
give us some names here. The people want to. They'll be getting their pens and papers out.
I feel like
Gigi's word.
I'm scared because I don't want my Malaysian friends to judge me when I say things that are like in a mall. You know, it's not that original. But there's a place in New Valley Mall called Nale, and it makes a super sized nasi lemak, and it is absolutely incredible. It's the first place I take everybody who comes to visit. And then there's a place called Devi's Corner in Bangsa. That's a banana leaf. So for anybody in Australia who's not aware, if you ever come to Malaysia, if you come to Kuala Lumpur, go to a banana leaf, and basically they put a humongous banana leaf in front of you, and then they will just drop endless amounts of food on it. And you will eat until you're stupid, and that's why it's so good. So Devi's Corner is incredible. The mixture of flavors, the curries, and a crab curry is incredible. That's definitely up there. And then if I was going to say a cafe, I would probably say it's a tie between a cafe called Common Man and a cafe called Urban Daybreak in Bangsa. Both really good coffee, and that like really for us like really takes you back when you're in Australia, you know. And that's beautiful. But honestly, I could go on forever. There's also, which I know you know, but for anyone listening, there's also places here called mamats, and they're like, a lot of them are 24-hour, and they make roti canai and all these different types of like, would you call them a pastry? I guess they're bread. They're kind of like a pastry bread, and they're super duper quick, super duper cheap, super duper easy, and it's the best food when you're sharing, you know. And I love, because in Italian culture, I guess, everything rotates around food, you know? And I love, like, after training, 4 or 5 of us, we order some stuff, we all talk, I rip a bit off yours, I dip it in my curry, you dip it in the dal, and we all have this beautiful, like, conversation over food. And I think that's where Malaysian culture feels so at home for me, you know? And so is that enough suggestions? Or
I think those
basically go for about 2 hours.
We could have a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah, freaking heck, man.
With all your options. Do you think those 1%ers play a massive role on the pitch, you spending time with the lads and getting to know each other and understanding how people work inside the dressing room? Have you seen that bond emulate on the pitch? Because you've had recent success with the AFC Cup and the Cup final.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think so. I think that's actually, not to disrespect my club, but I think that's actually the best thing we have. Is for those who don't know, but KLC last year we had the second smallest budget in the league. I'd say the year before that we had the smallest.
You were fighting relegation when you arrived.
You know. And this year, obviously because due to the success, thankfully more finances. But we're still a very small budget club in comparison to the big boys in the league, especially the biggest. But the thing we have a lot is camaraderie, chemistry. And when I came here, I really wanted to break the ice. And I understand that from the outside, you see a foreigner coming in the boys aren't stupid. They know that just like we do in the A-League, that the foreigner is going to come in on a bigger wage. He's coming in to be the one of the better players, and that comes with a lot of pressure. But inevitably, people are human. It will come with envy. You know, it's not their fault. Of course, you're gonna have some sort of envious feeling. So when I first came here, I was actually, at the time, I was reading a lot of autobiographies of players in football and outside of football that I admired, leaders. And I was thinking, what's my best way to enter this change room? Because I've seen it from the other side. I've seen when you turn up to a change room in Melbourne Victory, for example, and Ola Toivonen turns up, and you know this guy's making 8 times your salary. And it's because he's one of the best players. But how can he and I get along? What's the way that we can make this gel? And also, what's the things I didn't like that he did? Unfortunately, you're going to learn that. And so I did something really tactically on purpose at the beginning, where I wanted to rent a really humble car.
Yeah.
It would be the best choice of words.
We would have had to change our rating of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I think everybody knows the word I would like to have said, but
you need to work on your Bahasa.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wanted them to see me come in on that first day with showing that I wasn't going to flash money. I wasn't going to flash this kind of lifestyle because I hold this title. I'm the exact same person where you have to do the exact same work. And fortunately and unfortunately for me, the car that I rented, they didn't tell me, was electric green. So I had already paid for this car for 3 months. And so it's like a Myvi. It's the equivalent of like a Citroen C1, Toyota Aygo kind of small car.
A Corolla.
Yeah, but bright green, bro. Like bright green to the point like you can't make contact with the car because it's so bright. And I turned up to training and they probably thought, who on earth is this bloke? And that became the joke. So every day after training, I would pull up to the front and say, who wants to race?
Backfire.
Yeah, I'd say, who wants to race? And it was one of the best things that I did because it broke the ice with everyone. Everyone knew that I could take the piss out of myself. It was a joke. It was okay. I'm not going to come in here and, I'm from Tottenham Hotspur or I'm from this and that means that I'm better than you. Where that's never going to work in a team. And I'm really fortunate, man, from that kind of that first month, they all accepted me, took me in, and then obviously always showing respect to their culture, but that's kind of built a camaraderie in my team where I'm treated a lot like I lived here my whole life, which I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah, and I love your attitude. You're always, I'm always hearing about you speaking about your love for the country and why it's special to you, and it's had an impact to Malaysians I've spoken to in the media, and they say, Gigi really cares about his teammates and the people around him, and it is beautiful to see. And it's not easy being a foreigner. You touched on Ola Toivonen, but one person that you really looked up to in the Melbourne Victory dressing room was Matthew Delpierre. What did he do in Victory's dressing room that everyone admired so much about him? Because he had a great career in the Bundesliga.
Sorry, your questions are unbelievable. And I know you having me in the car, so I just want to say this. Okay? Your questions are very, very good, bro. You've done your homework. Yeah, wow, man. He was literally the reason I signed for Melbourne Victory. Yeah, because he just oozes class, man, when he defends. He's very similar in my brain to like a Virgil van Dijk when he's in a good place, This year, not so much. But he's got poise. He leads not so much with his mouth, it's with his ambiance, with his character on the field. You feel like when he has the ball, it's never a problem. And he could literally have made 200 mistakes in a row and you would still say, I'll give you the ball back because I trust you. And that to me is a really admirable thing as a defender, because you're in a position where you have the highest risk. You have the highest punishment for a mistake. You are the last line. And Mathieu Delpierre just had this ooze of confidence, calm, and he was humble, you know? And I wanted that attribute with my own spin, you know? And like you were saying before, I've been fortunate that I've had these leaders in my life, and I take this little attribute and I take this little attribute, and it really has sculpted my personality, especially in the change room. And here's the lesson that I obsessed about, and I would watch him all the time in training. And it was so unfortunate because my time at Melbourne, I didn't get to play with him a lot. You know, I played 7 games there, and I think every single time I played with Thomas Denk, who's also a fantastic player. But I wanted so badly to play alongside him. But that year, I watched him like a student, you know, and I just studied that a lot, and I thought, what is it? And I realized that he had that character where everybody in the team could always feel like it's okay if we lean on him. And that's something I just really admire in players, and him specifically.
Yeah, he is a real legend of Melbourne victory. You know, when I think back, I love being in the stands and seeing a Rolls Royce in defence.
You know?
But stepping out of the classroom, because you are a student of the game, where have you stepped out of the classroom to take a leap of faith? What has been your ballsiest moment, GG?
My ballsiest moment, man. My ballsiest moment has to be, for me, when I was at the AIS. We played in the Asian Cup, and fortunately, I played a really good game. In the game that was to qualify, it was a quarterfinal against UAE. We were losing 2-0. They subbed me on as a striker. Never played striker before in my life. We win 3-2, and I scored 2 goals. Yeah, like really, really lucky. Second goal's a cross. Did not mean to shoot at all. I smack it with my left foot, it curls in, and like just really, really fortunate, man. Really grateful. But we got back home, and as soon as we got back home, the coach kind of had me out of the plan again. He said, his verbiage on our first day was, "You're not in Uzbekistan anymore," which was where we had the competition. I wasn't in the plans, you know, and it sucker punch to my confidence, and I was like, oh crap, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to be here, I'm not going to play. And my dad said, well, you know, you're 16, what are we going to do? Are you gonna fight? Are you gonna push? Are you gonna try? Are we gonna go overseas? What are we gonna do? So I was faced for the first time in my whole life, really, this dilemma where I was like, are you gonna back yourself? And at the time, my parents were going through some financial hardship, and I knew that it wasn't financially viable for me to have this answer be wrong. So I had $2,250 saved, and I asked my parents for a flight to Italy, and that has to be my ballsiest moment. I took my money, and I said, by myself, first time I had, you know, going Sydney to Canberra is one thing, going Sydney to Rome was a whole different story. And I said, I'm going to do it, Dad, I'm going to do it. I'm saying, you know, it's going to be hard. They're going to fight with you. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. The change room's not going to welcome you. They're not going to want a trialist to come in. They're not going to want this, you know. And at the time, we had basically just made contact with one agent. He was saying, maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that. You know, when you have no CV, when you're a baby at that age, you have no leg to stand on. You're just at the whim of whoever will let you come. And if I look back, that 30 seconds of courage to say yeah to my dad, that has to be the ballsiest thing that I've ever done. And you know, I'm 29 now. Football has paid my bills for 13 years and hopefully for a lot longer. And that all comes down to that 20 seconds when my dad asked me and I had to choose the angel or the devil on my shoulder, you know. And I know you know, and I know some people that watch have this view. But at that age, your friends are working and making money, partying, finishing school, enjoying life, and you're gambling. And you know if you gamble and you don't know how long it's going to take, you don't know what kind of lifestyle you're going to be in, you're going to start again, that girl you liked, can't talk to her anymore, that friend's party coming up, you're not going to that, so on and so forth, you know? You have to take this absolute sacrifice. And, you know, at the time, I was also talking to Olivia, and, you know, and I have to say, hey, can you wait? I'm going to go chase a dream. And I have no assurance if this is going to work. I have no assurance how long this $2,000 is going to last. I have no assurance about any of the plan, what team I'm going to, how long this contract is, what money I'm going to make. I'm just going there to try to sing on the corner and hopefully get a record deal. You know, you're just trying to gamble. And when I look back on my whole life, that has to be, I don't actually understand how people do that. I don't understand how I had the balls to do that. But that has to be my ballsiest moment.
It's an incredible ballsiest moment that we've ever had on the show.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for sharing. And I love your openness. But what would you inspire others to be more open about their mental health issues and speak about testicular cancer, because people are not as open as you and I.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to people listening and watching the show?
Yeah, with testicular cancer, I think more specifically, I think people need to realize how easily and how frequently you can check. You know, and obviously, if you're seeing this and if you're on the DT38 page, you'll see the best way to check yourself. But oh man, what's the best way to answer this question? I feel like for men specifically, I feel like the rhetoric of hard and strong, meaning you have to be closed off, is finished. I don't think that exists in our culture anymore. You know, not expressing yourself shouldn't be a sign of confidence. It's a sign of weakness. It means that you're fearful of being judged, or you're fearful of your word. You know, real confidence and real strength comes in the fact that you can express yourself and you can feel like you deserve to be accountable for the words that you say, and that you're okay to be wrong, right, or to discuss. That's real strength. That's what I feel like the new age man is becoming. You know, it's you see like these films from the 1910s, and they talk to their wife and they're like, no, we don't do that, and then they storm off and stuff like that. That's not healthy. That's not real life. That's not a real man. You know, you face challenges every day. You face problems every day. You face hurdles every day. And the healthiest thing that you can do, and the reason I keep saying a real man is because I think I want that to be glorified a bit more. That the real man is fallible. The real man has mistakes. He has flaws, but he's willing to speak about it. He's willing to learn. He's willing to grow, and that's what we should pride ourselves on, being a real role model, a real male, a real man for everyone around us. And I hope that's, if there's any advice I can give in my whole journey, and from all the lessons I've learned from every single amazing person that's crossed my life, and then from the lessons and the impact and the influence that Dylan's had on me, it's that each one of those people that I admired was always willing to talk, was willing to face a problem and speak about it, learn from it, grow from it. And I hope that we can do that more and more as men.
And the healthiest thing anyone can do is listen to this podcast chat with you, Chichi, because the fountain of wisdom and knowledge has been overflowing.
Thank you.
And it's incredible to be in Kuala Lumpur speaking with you. I've loved
that a lot, man. I appreciate
you are a giant of the game here, and you are the third tower.